All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar. We will begin shortly at about 12:01. I just want to give everyone a chance to log on, but we will resume then. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining our second Ask an EV Owner webinar. We're really happy that you could attend. I have a bunch of EV panelists who are on the line who are very eager and excited to talk to you about their cars, but just a couple of housekeeping things first. So the webinar will go in a certain way where we'll have everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll have some questions that we've had prepared, and then you can go ahead and ask any questions that you want in the chat box. So feel free to do that, and I will read them out loud to the panelists when the time comes. So just so you know, we're having you do that because you are muted, and that will be the only way that you can ask questions. So without further ado, here we go. So my name is Devin DeLibero. I am the Energy Program Coordinator for Green Energy Consumers Alliance, and I am based out of our Providence office when things like that allow. We are here to talk more about our Drive Green program that Green Energy Consumers has. Basically, I'm sure you all know about it. It's all about electric vehicles, whether it's just education or providing you a platform to actually purchase and lease these types of vehicles. Our mission is to harness the power of energy consumers to speed the transition to a low carbon future. And Drive Green, our program, has really done wonders to speed that transition. We've sold approximately 800 cars since its inception in 2016. And just really briefly, I wanted to thank everyone who's participating as a result of Sustain PVD. Sustain PVD is Providence's sustainability office. And usually it is a thing that happens in person, and then it's a week-long event, and we participate. But obviously, because of the pandemic, we're not allowed to do that. And so we're happy that this could be a small part of Sustain PVD. So thank you, everyone, for participating for that. And without further ado, we have our first panelist, and his name is Joel. So Joel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Joel Gates. Thank you, Devin, for putting this on. I'm Joel Gates. I'm a Gloucester, Rhode Island resident. I am retired, but my wife is still working, so she gets the electric car most of the time. A little bit about my EV history. I've had an EV for the past about 5.5 years, just one at a time. I had started out with a Nissan Leaf in 2014, and I had a 2017 Chevy Bolt, and now I'm on a 2019 Chevy Bolt. So I leased the Leaf and the first Bolt only because you know, it's new technology, and with the Leaf, I only had about 100-mile range, and so when the Bolt came out with the more range, 238 miles, that's why I decided to get the Bolt. The problem with the electric car is that my wife and I both like to drive it, so we had a mileage limit on our lease, and you know, we have to pay a penalty if we go over 36,000 miles. So I ended both leases a little early, just to get the next model. And we've been happy with the Bolt. So this past September, we purchased a 2019 Bolt. So that's where we are right now. and we've been happy with all of those cars through the 5.5 years. We also have two internal combustion engine vehicles, but hopefully I will never have to buy another internal combustion vehicle. Anyway,
Great, thanks, Joel. Yeah, that was perfect. I hope you don't have to buy another internal combustion engine vehicle either. I'm sure you won't. But let's move on quickly to our next panelist. So, Mal, you are up.
Hi, my name is Mal. I actually work for Green Energy Consumers Alliance also. I'm a program associate that works on the Drive Green program. So I did go into the car buying process with a little bit more information than most people do when they're thinking about switching to an electric vehicle. But I actually ended up buying a pre-owned Chevy Volt back in November, in part because my budget was fairly small. So I wanted to go pre-owned, and unfortunately, a lot of the electric cars with the extended ranges that Joel was talking about were just out of my price point. I would have wanted to go fully electric, but I decided that going with the slightly less expensive plug-in hybrid was a better option for me. And since I live in Providence, I do mostly city driving, going to the grocery store and things that are hard to do on a bicycle, which is actually my preferred method of transportation. But because I don't drive very long distances on a typical day, I've been able to make most of my miles electric anyway. So it just made more sense. And I'm looking forward to answering questions that people have about that.
Perfect. Thanks, Mal. All right. Well, move on to Claire. Let me just unmute you. All right, Claire, you are up. Tell us all about you and your EV.
Hi. When my lease for our Prius was up in late 2015, we went with the Drive Green program and leased a Volt with a V as in violin from Muzzy. And we mostly loved it. They had a few Chevy things that we would have that we were spoiled with our Toyota, because Toyota makes a really well put together product, but they don't make a full range electric vehicle. So we drove that for a few years, and then the lease, we ended that lease early. That went about 50 miles on a charge, so I did have to use some gasoline for some of my longer distances. So my husband Jan learned that the rebates were running out at the end of 2019. So we ended our lease early on the Volt and took the leap and bought a Tesla, which should last for a good long time. It's a Tesla 3, the plebeian model. We love it. It's a very different experience than driving, basically an internal combustion converted car. This was just designed from the ground up, apparently. And it did take a little time to get used to all the controls. I was a little nervous the first couple of weeks driving it, but once you get the hang of it, it's just a joy to drive, and to not have to stop and ever get gasoline. Just do have to be careful and watch that mileage, because you don't want to end up in a situation where your battery is gonna run out. So we almost learned that lesson the hard way. You got anything to share, Jan?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Jan, and I'm the Claire's husband. So co-owner of the Tesla. But the other thing about the Tesla and the Volt that is particularly important is that Claire uses these cars for her job a lot, and she has to drive all over the South Shore of Massachusetts, and even sometimes to the Cape. So the reason for the Volt was because she needed the range, and there isn't a really rich set of charging stations down there that will charge you quickly. And that's when the Tesla 3 came in because of its range and the availability of some superchargers in places like Mashpee on the Cape and farther west, and then in Braintree and also near Sandwich, in Wareham. That was the deciding factor in going to that, because she really had a challenge. She would make these grand tours all over the South Shore that required that range.
Wow, sounds like the Tesla is the perfect fit for you, Claire. All right,
Oh, it's
thanks,
awesome.
both
We love
Claire. Yeah, great. Thanks, Claire and Jan. We will just move on. I think we have one or two more people to get through, and then we'll go ahead to questions. All right, so you are up, Kat. Make sure you are unmuted. Okay, you're good to go.
I am, yes. Hi, I'm Kat. I live in Wayland in Massachusetts. And here I am with my family, my husband and my daughter, and also my sister-in-law. So we bought the Leaf at the end of 2017, and it has, as an older model, 120 miles on it. And it was our first EV that we bought. We got it, and a week later, my sister-in-law, who lives in Cambridge, called us up and said they also bought one. So that's why there's two Leafs in this picture. She often comes over here, and we have one of these chargers and charges her car at our house. So we have only one car. Our family only has one car. We do mostly suburban driving with it. My husband commutes with a bus into, well, not nowadays, but usually commutes in a bus with to his work in Cambridge. So I usually drive this car, and it's just suburban driving. But with 120 miles, we actually drive it quite often, or drove it quite often, to New York City and back. And that was a cinch, really not a problem when you know where the chargers are. And the most important part, though, the most important condition to be able to do this is that you have a fast charge plug to do that. So when I talk to people about buying an EV, I always tell them, like, you got to have that CHAdeMO or fast charge plug in order to really extend your mileage. And I also love the Leaf for many reasons, but one of the things is I'm a beekeeper and a big gardener, so my Leaf can fit 4 straw bales. It's got quite a bit of space, which I really like as well. And that's about it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, that's a really good point about the fast charging capability, which I'm sure people will have questions about later. Okay, and last but not least, Carol, you are up. Make sure, oops, hold on one second. Okay, Carol.
I'm trying to figure out this button.
Okay, you're good, Carol. Go ahead. We can hear you.
All right, fine. Excuse me. Hello, my name is Carol Lyall. I'm retired. I live in Kaat, Massachusetts, about an hour and a half south of, I'm sorry, south of Boston. In 2017, I got an email from Green Energy Consumers about a gathering they were hosting at the Plymouth Library in the parking lot. And it was an opportunity to go and see and talk to people who owned electric cars. And I have solar panels that generate a lot of electricity. And so I had been thinking about an electric car. So I went up to Plymouth, and there were Teslas there and Volts and Priuses and such. And I've always had a Volkswagen. And usually I've always had wagons. I've always had a stick shift wagon, and I'm just used to Volkswagens. Anyway, there was a man there who had an e-Golf, and I was intrigued, and he was just delighted with it. And so after that, I went to see a dealer in Hyannis that I've known for 30 years. And we talked for a few hours about electric cars. And we talked about what he called range anxiety. And my oldest son lives in Montpelier, Vermont. And so the thought of driving up there in an electric car in the middle of the winter was a little disconcerting. And he said to me, well, you know, you could always rent a car. And I said, well, you're absolutely right, because how often do I do that? But anyway, that's kind of how I got introduced to electric cars. My dealer friend was able to find me a used e-Golf from Connecticut. It's a 2015. It's an SEL, so it has all the bells and whistles. It had just under 14,000 miles. And I went down to check it out, and I was just delighted. It has a hatchback, which I really have. I just am so used to having a hatchback, so I can throw in those bales of hay and such. And you know, people don't realize that these electric cars are an amazing amount of fun to drive. They're not like golf carts. They're just so zippy and a lot of fun. I hate buying gasoline, so you know, this has been great. I could go on and on, so I won't. So, but there it is, the bottom line, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Carol, and thank you everybody for introducing yourself. So next we will start with the questions. So the first one, this is open to everybody, so you can chime in whenever you're ready, is what's the most common EV myth you hear?
Hi, so this is Jan Galkowski. So the most common EV myth that we've encountered has been the business about how because most of the power plants use fossil fuels, that in fact the net amount of emissions that you have from driving an EV is higher than if it was a fossil fuel car, and that's
No.
really wrong. Leaving aside, even in parts of the country where there are a lot of fossil fuel plants, I mean, we have to get started on this somehow. And clearly, you're going to produce more fossil fuels if you're burning like gasoline or diesel per mile than you would because of the efficiency of those big fossil fuel plants anyway. So that's the most common myth I think that we've encountered.
And also the battery, the emissions from producing the batteries.
From manufacturing the batteries, which
turns out is false also.
Yeah, we've researched that, yes.
Great. All right. Anyone else want to answer that question, or should we keep going?
I was just going to say, this is Joel, going along with what Jan said and Claire. Green Energy Consumers Alliance has, I think Mal, maybe you can speak to this, has done a lot of research on those myths with numbers and debunking all those myths. So if anybody has any questions about that, check out those, I guess, previous webinars. Maybe Mal, you could speak to that.
Yeah, thanks for the plug, Joel. Glad to know someone's reading the stuff I've been writing. But yeah, I think just going off of that myth, you know, 40% about of the electricity produced in New England is from zero emissions resources. So that's including nuclear, but I think that that just is a testament to, you know, how clean the electricity system is, particularly in New England. And there are a lot of communities that are stepping up and demanding more renewable energy as, you know, part of their communities, and Green Energy Consumers Alliance has been part of that work. For the folks living in Providence, for sustained PVD, I know that Providence has made a commitment to increase that amount of renewable energy. And so it's surprising to hear folks doubting the environmental benefits because they're really clear. And, as the grid gets cleaner, we'll see lower emissions from EVs every year. So I'm pretty optimistic that myth will get squashed out eventually.
Great, thanks, Mal and Joel. Okay, so let's just move along to the next question. So can someone please explain one pedal driving and its benefits? Or just how fun it is?
I'll try that. One pedal driving, basically for most driving, at least with the Chevy Bolt, for most driving, you just use the accelerator, or once was known as the gas pedal. So for accelerating, you press down on it for accelerating, and when you're braking, you just release it, and it will brake on its own. And it uses the electric cars run on an electric motor, and when you release the pedal, it acts as a generator. So the electric motor, when you're putting electricity into it, will drive the car, or will accelerate the car. And when you're releasing, when you're not using any electricity, that will act as a generator. So it functions both ways. A lot of people don't understand that. I don't understand it that completely, but that's basically how it works. And you can come to with the Chevy Bolt, you can come to a complete stop, and with just using one pedal, and that adds to the pleasantness of driving in an electric vehicle.
Well, are you saying you don't have a brake pedal?
I do have a brake pedal. So if there are situations where you need to come to a faster stop, a panic stop, then I use the brake pedal. And it's often that I go out, if that I won't use the brake pedal at all, for that drive. But I use the brake pedal every once in a while. And if you're on a hill, your car is facing down the hill, that often will creep, so you have to use the brake pedal then. But most times you don't have to drive with brake and gas, just one pedal.
This is Carol. Hi, this is. Oops, I'm sorry. This is Carol.
Ahead,
Carol. Okay. I've had my e-golf for about 2.5 years, and I'm still learning and learning and learning. But one of the things that is such fun is, as Joel was saying, when you're driving, you're using energy, but if you take your foot off the accelerator, and I have to pay attention because, I do this whenever I can, because when you do, there's this green line that'll start growing because you're charging the battery. And I have actually driven from Hyannis to where I live. It's about 10 miles west of Hyannis, and I have gained electricity by the time I get home. So I find that is a lot of fun. So when I started driving this car, I felt like I was 17 all over again, and I was starting all over again. So yeah, that's just a great component. And as I was saying to the organizers before this started, one summer I drove up to Vermont, and when I left Western Massachusetts, I had about 30 miles to go. And it was completely uphill, and I used about 59 miles worth of battery. And then when I went home, instead of using 30, I used 3 because it was all downhill. So it's just a whole new dimension of driving. It makes it really so much more interesting. And so I'll be quiet now.
All right.
Yeah, hi.
Well,
So this is Jan. I just wanted to
ahead.
make a comment about the one pedal driving. The other benefits of that are that for the Tesla, at least, there's a mode that you can set, and it will just keep parked on the hill no matter how steep the hill is. But also the other thing is that it means that the brakes on the car last a long time. So the brakes on the Tesla 3 are essentially warranted for like 100, 110,000 miles because you just don't use them.
Yeah, that's all true. All great points. All right. Thank you, everybody. So our next question, we're just going to move on quickly because attendees have asked some really great questions. So the next one is, how do you find public charging stations? Are there any apps in particular that you use? Kaat, can we start with you? Kaat?
Yes. I use several apps. Well, I usually drive in my own area, so I know exactly where they are. Most of the time, though, I just charge at home. We had a level 2 charger installed, which is very helpful. But I use I'm trying to Easy Charge app. I use the ChargePoint app, and there's quite a few other apps too. They mainly all point to the same stuff. But for instance, when we're driving to New York City, you have these wonderful apps that actually tell you where the chargers are and whether they're in use or not. So when we're going to New York City and we only want to stop twice to charge, again, remember our range is 120 miles. We want to stop at superchargers, of course, because we don't want to sit around for 4 hours. We just want to sit around for 20 minutes to have a coffee. We aim it such that when we arrive, that charger is actually free. It's actually open and not occupied. And that has never failed us. So these apps are fantastic. And they're usually very up to date on whether they're working or not, etc.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Actually, Jan and Claire, would you mind chiming in about the Tesla charging stations?
Awesome. They go so fast, it's amazing. I did have a problem one night because the battery does drain more quickly when it's cold out, and you have to take that into account. So I had to stop just 15 miles shy of home in Braintree from the Cape one day and plugged in at the South Shore Plaza, and oh my God, it was charged up in like an hour. I couldn't believe how fast it was, 200 miles in an hour. But mostly we charge at home as well. We installed one of those chargers, and we have solar panels, so we're driving on sunshine, baby.
Great, that's even better. Okay, so I think we pretty much answered the can EVs be used for long distance driving with a couple of our other answers. So I'm just going to move on to more of everyone else's questions instead of my questions. Okay, so let's start with the first one. 1 second. So I have one question about apartment living in EV. So this question is, I earnestly hope you can address the question of what people in apartment buildings can do in a place like Cambridge, where for most apartment buildings there's only on-street parking. Mel, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really depends on the apartment building that you're in. I'm a renter as well. I live in a multi-family home, and I usually just charge using an outdoor outlet that's accessible from where I park. So if you're in a building that has that as an option, it's not quite as fast as installing your own level 2 charging station, but it gets the job done, especially if you plug in overnight. If you live in a much larger building where you don't have access to an outlet because you either are parking on the street or a garage or something that doesn't have electricity, I believe there are a lot of apartment buildings that are considering using some of the incentives that are available from utilities like National Grid or Eversource to consider installing charging. And as part of my work with green energy consumers, I'm actually working on a guide to help people who live in apartment buildings try and figure out what a good solution would be. So either asking the building owner to consider installing charging, especially if there are multiple people who are interested in doing so. You tend to have a little bit more leverage if you are an owner of a condo instead of just a renter. But we do want to provide resources to kind of be able to ask those questions and get the process started for the building manager. But the final thing I'll say is if you live in a big building, you have a car, and you do mostly on-street parking, so really not a lot of opportunity to install charging, I would say just take a look at some of the charging resources that people were talking about. So either PlugShare or the ChargePoint apps, and check out if there are any charging stations near places that you go to anyway. So like the grocery store, the gym that you go to, maybe your workplace is considering installing charging. Pretty much any time where your car is going to be spending a couple of hours is a good opportunity to charge. So if you have options there, then that can be a good substitute.
I think
Great.
that very good point about the charging stations. I have a son who lives in Somerville, and when I go up there in my e-Golf, I can get up there fine. But about 2 blocks away, there's a CVS that has a charging station, and I use ChargePoint, and between 8 at night and 8 in the morning, it's free. And so I just take it up there for the night, and in the morning I get up there before 8, and there I'm all set. So that's a very good point. There are so many charging places, especially in places like Boston or, you know, highly populated areas. So yes, that's a very good point.
Yeah. Thanks both. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question. So this one is a question about buying versus leasing. Can anyone speak to that? Like, what do they think the pros and cons are? Joel, you want to start since I know you did both?
Could you repeat that, Devin?
Could you give any insight on the benefits of buying versus leasing? So do some like pros and cons.
Okay, yeah, so I've had quite a bit of experience with leasing, and so the first car we leased was a Nissan Leaf, and the reason why we leased then was because I figured the mileage would increase at some point, and I didn't want to get stuck with the Nissan Leaf for a long time, and didn't know what the resale value was either. So that worked out well. I'm pretty sure Nissan worked the federal tax credit into the lease, so it was a little bit less than it would have been. Also go with the 2017 Bolt, which was the next car we leased. The federal tax credit was worked into that, and we weren't, you know, again, technology is relatively new, so we wanted to make sure that the Bolt worked out well, and we found that the Bolt worked very well for us, and that's why we purchased the next car. So the next Bolt. So we purchased the 2019 Bolt in September of this past year, and the rebates or the tax credit was going away, and so I think it was cut in half at that point, but we decided to take advantage of it. But also the dealers, through the Drive Green program, the dealers were giving quite a big incentive to purchase the car. So it all worked out well on the bottom line. So we've been happy with the leasing and the purchasing.
Great. All right. Okay. So the next question is generally about winter driving and getting up and down hills with rear-wheel drive and electric vehicles. This person is specifically interested in an i3, which none of you have, but I think you could still speak to the point. So if you can just speak to how the winter temperatures affect your driving and how icy and snowy roads affect your driving in your EV. This is an open question to anybody.
Yeah, this is Kaat. We lived in a place where we had quite a steep driveway, and we would snow shovel it ourselves. So, and we never had a problem. This was one of our concerns as well, and we bought it at the end of the year, so winter was coming, and we were apprehensive about that. But it has enough. I think it depends on the state of your tires as well, of course. But we never had trouble getting stuck on our driveway in the snow or on the slushy ice. It's not like a hybrid where that may be an issue. These EVs have great pickup and perseverance, you know, when you're going up. So that has never been an issue. It is the case that the colder it is, the less efficient the battery is. So your range goes down quite a bit. But again, it depends on which car you have. So you just have to keep that in mind.
Right. Okay. I think that
So, hi, this is Jan. This is Jan. I just want to make another comment about since the mention was made about the battery. So I can't speak to any of the other vehicles, but the Tesla will actually use some energy to keep the battery warm, so it doesn't lose performance when you start up. And they caution in the winter that if you basically, suppose you're going skiing and you have the vehicle out overnight in cold weather, that they caution you that when you're monitoring your battery load, that you have to take that into consideration, because it will drain some power. Not a lot of power, but it will drain some power if it's out in the cold.
Yeah, and so I just would, just for a follow-up on that question, if you still have other questions about winter driving, we do have a winter driving page on our website that gives you all the tips and tricks to try and combat the reduced range that comes with winter driving. So take a peek, and if you have any more questions, you can always follow up later. Now, this is going to be a quick question for you. So this person has their plan was to buy an EV after the winter, but now that there are restrictions with the pandemic and test driving and so on, they're not sure how to access which car they potentially want to drive. So they're asking for any quick resources for making this decision in today's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely. Right now is a really difficult time to buy anything. I think especially when you're looking at a big purchase like a car, you want to make sure that what you're getting is suits you. One thing that helped me when I was trying to figure out which car made the most sense is I just took a good honest look at my budget and which features I knew I definitely wanted and which things were less important. So once I decided that I wanted at least like 200 miles of range, that narrowed it down to some of the longer range battery electric vehicles and then some of the plug-in hybrids. And then I narrowed my decision from there. But once I kind of saw on paper, like, okay, this 2017 Chevy Volt is what makes the most sense for me, I ended up only going to one pre-owned car sales place. And I took a look at the car, test drove it, and was like, yep, okay, this is it. And so I know that, a lot of folks tend to shop around more when they're buying cars. I admit this was also the first car I ever bought. So I kind of wanted to just get it over with and have it be done. But I would recommend just like writing down and like kind of doing your research to try and figure out which car makes the most sense for you. And then reaching out to a dealership, hopefully through the Drive Green program if there's one close by to you. I know a lot of dealerships are bringing cars to test drive to people's homes. So if you live close enough to a dealership that will do that with an electric car, that probably is your best option. And then once you test drive and kind of confirm that, you know, the car suits you, that you like how the entertainment systems work, that, you know, you can comfortably sit in it, that it's as big as you were expecting, then I think it's a pretty easy decision from there. So I recommend just like really narrowing your focus about what kind of car you want, and then just taking a quick test drive if possible to make sure it suits your fancy. Hopefully things will get a little easier, but yeah.
All right, thanks, Mal. Okay, so moving on. Let's see, we had a question about range dropping in winter, but we've pretty much covered that. So if you have any more questions on that, you can check out the website. Okay, we have another question. Okay, so for those who do not have solar panels, how much does it increase your electricity bill in cost every month?
When this is Carol. When I was part of the green energy gathering at Hyannis Airport last fall, whereby people were able to come and look at electric cars, I got that question. What is, you know, looking at all of the factors, how much does it cost to operate an electric car versus a gas car? And this is with someone with no solar panels. And I was told that someone had figured it out, and operating an electric car versus a gas car was half the price. So okay. You don't have solar panels to save money.
Anybody else have any tidbits to share on that?
This is Joel. We do maybe about 50%. We do have solar panels. We do about 50% of our charging at home. But we sort of make it a point to find public charging as well. And so that's, you know, if you can find a good public charging place, either at grocery store, like Mal was saying, restaurant, or if your company where you work has charging stations. My wife teaches at Rhode Island College, and they have a charging station there, and it's getting pretty popular now, but they have added more charging stations, but that's another way that we charge. So we don't add a whole lot to our electricity usage.
Yeah, this is Kaat. I remember we once did the calculation and it comes out as cheaper. I cannot quite remember how much, or it was substantial, more than 25% for sure. Another thing to consider though is that electric cars have much lower maintenance costs because they have fewer moving parts, no transmission, no exhaust, all that stuff. So when you're considering the cost of maintenance, the savings there are also quite substantial.
Yeah, I've been meaning to sit down and do the math on how much money it saved me. I guess I have more time to do that now, but it's kind of hard because I'd say I do about 15% of my charging usually, 15 to 20% at public stations. I mean, obviously less so now, but those are usually free. And so I feel like, you know, if I go to Providence Place Mall and you know, go do something for 2 hours, watch a movie, and come back, and I have like 30 miles of driving for free, it's like it feels like I'm getting away with something because of how much I'm just not spending on my fuel at all, because a lot of charging is free. So again, it depends on, you know, if you totally do 100% of your charging at home, or how much you rely on those public stations.
I have found that the only places that charge with the charging point, I've only used that app, but are in the cities. And in Boston, near where my son lives, it's $1 an hour, and you can only charge for 2 hours because there are other people, you know, that want to use the station. But then, as I said, between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., it's free. So, but basically, other than the cities, it is free. And I don't know how long that will last, but yeah, you can easily, you don't have to charge in your garage. It's just very convenient.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We
This
have a
is
couple
Claire.
more questions.
Can I
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
just a little thing about charging etiquette. There actually is charging etiquette, and Tesla really enforces this, that once your car is charged, you got to move on out because other people are waiting. So, I mean, not if it's in the middle of the night, obviously, but that's a thing that, you know, people without EVs that park in the charging stations, that's a real no-no. But even for us EV owners, we need to be considerate. And not hog the thing when we're done charging. So that's something that when I had the Volt, I would be annoyed because there'd be a car sitting there for hours that obviously was already charged and I couldn't get in. So that's just an aside.
Okay. Great. All right. So I have another question about installing a level 2 charger in a specific area. So I can answer that on the side, but do you all have level 2 chargers installed at your home?
This
I
is Joel.
do. Carol, sorry, Carol does.
Joel does not. So we just plug it into 120 volts and deal with that.
And you find that that's enough, Joel?
Say that again, Devin.
And you find that that's easy enough to do?
Yes, that works.
Yeah.
Eventually, you know, I did say we have another internal combustion car. At some point, I hope to get rid of that. We have a daughter who's graduating from college and looking for a car, so that may end up with her. And so we may end up with another electric vehicle. And so at that point, I think we would install a level 2 charger.
Hi, so this is Jan. We have a level 2. It's a Siemens that we got when we had the Volt. Interestingly enough, if we were going to do it again, we would probably get the Tesla charger. It's a level 2 charger, and the reason for that is down the road. It's following the technology. Tesla and other places are working on chargers that can potentially draw on the EV battery to power the house. And use the EV battery as a big storage tank from your solar panels. So that's something we would probably, I'm not sure it's worth it for us to swap our existing one out, but that's something to keep in mind.
Let's see. Just doing a time check. Okay, so I think we have someone just asked a question about vehicle to grid, which John just kind of talked about. I think we have one more question that we can all really discuss in the last 10 minutes or so here. So we have one person who is interested in an EV and knows that there are many more cars coming in the market soon, and they're asking if this is the right time to buy or should they wait for newer models and updated technology along with greater distances. So this is a free-for-all. Everybody please answer and comment. What do you think?
Well, this is Carol. I mean, there'll always be newer cars and newer models coming down the road. So I would not put myself in the position wondering, well, gee, maybe I should wait for 6 months. Well, you could, but then when you got to that point, you could still say, well, gee whiz, maybe I should wait another 6 months. So yeah, no, I would definitely just go ahead and do it. And as I said, I got a used e-Golf, and it had not quite 14,000 miles on it. It was $19,000. And that's a whole lot less than I was expecting on paying. So anyway, I would encourage you to just give it a go, because you won't be sorry.
This is Joel. I agree with Carol. If you're comfortable with 200 miles plus as a range, then you've got plenty of choices now. If you need 300 miles, then the Teslas have about 300 miles of range. So if you need more than that, you can wait. But I think for most people, now is a good time to get in a car. We all have to remember that we need to support the EV market, and we can all do that by purchasing a car. How's that?
This is
All right.
Kaat. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go
I
ahead,
just
Kat.
wanted to make.
I was just gonna defer to you. So.
Oh, okay. A big. The incentives are big, and they went away for a bit in 2020, and then they came back again. But who knows how long that's going to last? So the longer you wait, the lower the incentives may be. So that makes a difference in your wallet. But if you really want to hedge your bets, then it might be a good choice to lease for a year. Then you're not stuck with that model, but in the meantime you are enjoying all the benefits of an EV. That would be my 2 cents.
Just a follow-up question to that, Kat, if you don't mind. So since you had the Leaf for a while, if there's a car out there now that you would try to get, what car do you think that would be?
The newest model Leaf.
Okay, there you go.
Really. I have space requirements, and the Leaf really was for us for the space the best car. And I think there might be studies out there, but I think just like other car owners, also EV owners kind of grow a loyalty to a certain model. But I have to say I have not tested any of the newer models, but I think we'd go for another Leaf. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. How about you, Claire and Jan? Would you stick with Tesla? Are you very happy Tesla customers?
Oh yeah, I think Tesla is constantly updating its software. So you're basically getting a new car every few months when they update. They can improve the efficiency of the battery, and they do all sorts of things. And it happens overnight while you're sleeping if you set it for that setting. And we anticipate that this car will probably go for 15, 20 years at least. They're rated for, the batteries are supposed to go for what, 1 million miles?
Yep.
Which I don't really think we're going to be driving 1 million miles in our lifetime. So so that's how Tesla deals with it. I mean, as long as we keep the body in good shape, there, as was mentioned, there's not a lot of moving parts, so there's not much maintenance. And so Tesla has worked on it for a long time, and as well as a bunch of other companies. And I think they're getting to the point of tweaking rather than making vast improvements.
Yeah, the other thing about the Tesla is that I was pretty much amazed is that that's a really heavy car. I mean that thing is really solid. I mean it's and it's got like this titanium plate on the bottom that supports the battery on the thing, which means that it's just there. Also, you can look up the accident statistics yourselves at US DOT, but generally speaking, if another vehicle gets into an accident with a Tesla, it's pretty bad for the other vehicle because they're just very well done.
That is true. So Carol, I'm just going to extend this question to you. So I know that the e-golfs are not going to be here for so much longer. If you had to choose another new EV, what would you choose, do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question. I would not be able to say right now what it would be. I would definitely need to have a hatchback. It's just too much a part of my lifestyle. I know that Volkswagen is coming out with an electric Volkswagen bus, and I've seen pictures of it. It looks just like the bus from the 60s. It's a little different. So I think that's intriguing in itself, but I just don't, it's been 2.5 years since I was looking for a car, and I haven't had reason to look anymore. But so that's an interesting question, and I'm sorry I can't answer it.
No, that's perfectly fine. That's still a good answer. I'm sure a lot of people are excited to hear about the new Volkswagen bus that's going to come out in a couple of years. I've seen pictures and I'm pretty impressed with it myself. So I'm sure other people will now go and look at it too. So we just have a couple more minutes. I just want to give kind of like an open floor. If there's anything that we haven't mentioned that you think would be really helpful for people attending, now would be a great time to do so.
I just wanted to share a quick anecdote. So I said I bought my car in November, and actually at the same time, one of my housemates was looking for a new car as well. And so she came with me to the dealership on my test drive. And after the test drive, she just fell in love with the thing and ended up buying the one other pre-owned Volt that was there. And so I just want to say, if you are thinking about it, an electric vehicle at some point in the future, and you haven't driven one yet, the next time that your local dealership opens up, or that Green Energy Consumers Alliance is hosting a ride and drive event, or maybe if you know someone who has an electric vehicle, just take a ride in it. And they're really just great cars. They're fun, and people love them. So I encourage you to do that once you have the chance.
Great. Thanks, Mel. If anyone else has anything else to say, now would be the time. Otherwise, we will wrap up.
This is Kaat. I would love to say that the fact that there's no exhaust coming out of that exhaust pipe, and especially when you go to events where there's a lot of kids sitting on the curb, that I just love that.
Excuse me.
So because people are now, they're socializing along the street, social distancing, and spread out along the street. As I drive through, I know that I'm not polluting the atmosphere around them, and that just makes me feel so good.
Well, I think we will end on that feel-good note. All right, so thank you so much to everybody who's joined and participated as an attendee, and I want to say another thank you to all of our panelists who answered all the questions. We really appreciated your time and you being here and answering everyone's questions. So if you're still concerned about EVs and want to learn more, you can check out our website. And if I didn't get to your question, I will do some follow-up emails where we'll also send a recording of this webinar. So once again, thank you to everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.
Thanks.